Hello, my name is Viviana Gobbato and I am a PhD student and lecturer at the Sorbonne Nouvelle University in Paris. Today I'm going to talk to you about museum lighting and embodied experience. But first, let me thank the IES for giving me the opportunity to be part of this annual conference. Let's start. The integration of audiovisual and digital applications and devices into everyday life accelerates and multiplies cultural consumption. Some researchers, such as Hess and Ritzer, are critical on this trend, observing a phenomenon of McDonaldization of cultural industries and cultural window shopping of practices. The museum is not spared by this phenomenon. Since the 1980s, the narrative of exhibitions has increasingly called for immersive and spectacular staging. Thus, museums began to compete with other fields and cultural fields such as theater and cinema industries. These practices, according to Jacobi, recall visiting theme parks. They are suspected of Disneyification of the museum and accused to turn it, according to Kavanagh, into, I quote, a site of spectacular staging and operatic exuberance. Thus, museum architecture also, according to François Mérès, contributes also to this sensational phenomenon. Nevertheless, this turn contributes to create an atmosphere, an aura to enter the complex universe of museums. Museum lighting participates to this atmosphere. It constructs environments, guides the gaze, delimits the vision, circumscribes the exhibition, indicates and communicates a message, according to Lem, Esrati, Schelke, Hubert and Cattel. It plays a part in the narrative of the exhibition. It sets up a sensitive environment. Furthermore, dynamic lighting can control and influence temporality and rhythm of navigation. So, what are the specific contributions of museum lighting within embodied experience? What are its effects on sense making? Is its impact positive or negative? Does it support the content? Or is it an obstacle to the comprehension of the exhibition? This presentation focuses on the results of an exploratory study conducted in 2019 at the Grande Galerie de l'Évolution within the Museum of Natural History in Paris. This geology gallery is equipped with an immersive sound and light show. The research aimed to identify the role of light in embodied experience and attempted to describe its contribution to the process of sense-making. The Grande Galerie de l'Évolution was an appropriate place for this question because of the specificity of its immersive scenography. Founded in 1889, this geology gallery was severely damaged during the Second World War and then remained essentially closed to the public. In the early 1990s, the architects Paul Chemetov and Borja Huidobro, the sonographer René Alliot, and the lighting designer André Dio restored and modernized the Grande Galerie. In 1994, the site opened to the public, who discovered a dynamic scenography composed of a DMX lighting installation and a sound environment. The designers wanted to promote a cognitive experience, relying on multiple approaches such as emotional, aesthetic, physical, and semantic. So, according to Bruno David, the president, so that the space marvels to instruct. The project nevertheless stimulated debate among the museum's curators and museologists. Jacques Maigret, Florence Roland Cerceau, Yves Giraud, and François Guichard wondered what place this scenography would leave to the understanding of the exhibition theme. In 2014, lighting designer Stéphanie Daniel renovated and enhanced the lighting installation. The canopy and the left wall are provided with a new DMX dynamic installation. The ceiling is equipped with 93 spotlights with halogen lamps and the wall with 143 LED bars. The light shows reproduces the colors and intensity of a succession of nocturnal cycles of approximately 75 minutes. Each cycle stimulates different moments of the day from dawn to night, as well as meteorological effects such as torrential rain, storm, and wind and rainbow. Moreover, 87 spotlights with halogen lamps accentuate the specimen and reproduce the colors of the environment of the presented species: the poles, the savanna, the desert, and the tropical forest. Furthermore, general and accented lighting highlights the 19th century architectural structure. Finally, the showcases are provided with fiber optics to protect the most fragile specimens, such as insects. One of the challenges of this research was the method of investigation. First, we wanted to measure the influence of light without drawing the visitor's attention to it. Second, it was necessary to reproduce as faithfully as possible the conditions of a natural visit in autonomy. Thus, we favor the Remind Survey program. This program stems from the epistemology of inaction by Varela and Maturana. It takes up the contributions of self-confrontation, according to Jacques Thoreau, and the simulated recall methods by Bloom and Nielsen. The Remind protocol allows to record the subjective trace of the visitor's activity, to stimulate their later recollection during the interview. At the beginning, the visitor is equipped with the eye tracking device and proceeds to the tour. One's field of vision is recorded by the tracker and also the gaze point. The visit is interrupted by the researchers after 15-20 minutes. Then the visitor is accompanied to a room close to the exhibition for the interview. One sits in front of a computer that retransmits the recording of the visit. The gaze point appears on the screen as a red circle. The researchers invite the visitors to tell, describe, and comment the experience. The researchers follow up comments, take up the ends of sentences, ask for clarifications and additions, but do not refer to the subject of the investigation. Then the interview is transcribed and synchronized with the video of the visit using Advin software. The verbalizations are analyzed from the components of the visitor's sign activity according to Jacques Thoreau. Researchers identify the representamen, what the visitor considers in the world as one perceives it, the engagement, the nature of the engagement, the mobilized knowledge, the expectations, the sense-making constructed during the experience. We realized 10 interviews. 7 were first-time visitors. The aim of the research was to collect as accurate a description of the visiting experience as possible. The researchers refrained from talking about light or any other subject that might prompt visitors to talk about lighting. Since the visit was in autonomy, it was not synchronized with the nocturnal cycle. The visitors therefore did not necessarily experience the same sequences, nor do they witness the same phenomena reproduced by the dynamic lighting. We observe 3 main results. First, abstraction from the external world. All visitors mention a general atmosphere characterized by lights and dark areas, and associated it with having a peaceful, aesthetic, relaxing, or wellness experience. 8 out of 10 visitors spontaneously expressed themselves on the immersive dimension of the atmosphere. For example, according to Blondine, I quote, "It is quite bright and there is a subdued light, but it relaxes more than anything else." Christelle noticed a dynamic light and declared, "We are fine in this atmosphere which varies." François was, I quote, "in his own bubble and can refocus on himself." He described the atmosphere as quiet and pleasant. He also observed the architectural structure and concluded that the building, with its lights, is beautiful. He also affirmed that lighting atmosphere is soothing because the light is soft. For Lionel, the light is good and everything is done to make you feel confident. The visitor found in the museum an artistic dimension and it is beautiful. Faced with these animals, his imagination was solicited. He said, "There are things that look more threatening and there are things that look more serene." According to him, it was a place that makes you dream. Marie said she was initially a little stressed after a medical appointment. She was looking to relax and was able to do so because of the atmosphere. She said, "The lights are really good. Everything is well lit. You can see the animals very well. I have the impression that you are quickly immersed in a cocoon, in a concentration that nothing negative can happen." Nina was immersed in a spirit of discovery and a break with the outside world. She said, "There is a good immersion. The place is pretty vast. It is a little dark and there is no light, no window. You are really inside. You don't think about the outside at all, and it's almost as if you don't think you are in Paris. You are in the exhibition. It captures your attention." Finally, another visitor, Sarah, spoke of a dynamic atmosphere that created an interesting energy. So several questions can be observed from these results. First, visitors associate the atmosphere with the notions of calm, security, confidence, relaxation, and appeasement. The atmosphere contributes to a feeling of serenity. Secondly, the visitors refer to a state of refocusing on oneself, of concentration on the exhibits, the specimens, the devices, and thus of disconnection with the time of the outside reality. The atmosphere stimulates a form of abstraction from the world and participates in the creation of a place apart, specific to the world of the exhibition. Third, the visitors claim to call upon their imagination and their memories. The luminous atmosphere triggers familiar mnemonic images that contribute to the construction of reference points during the visit. Thus, the atmosphere refers to a dimension of well-being, of aesthetic and meditative contemplation that dissociates itself from the notion of reality and time experienced outside the museum. Second, an exhibition in Technicolor. The colors of the dynamic lighting, and more particularly of the universes, were also evoked during the interviews. Marie saw colors as soon as she entered the main hall. She said, "There were dark colors, brown, earth, savannah. There you have it, all mixed with artificial lights. It was very, very welcoming." So visitors noted the variations in color between level 0, the marine environment, and the upper level with the terrestrial environment, as well as in the general atmosphere of the exhibition. For example, François differentiated between the environments of the specimens on display. He said, "Above, we were in yellow, earth, fire. Finally in all that it represents, but without it being aggressive. And then when we go down to the marine level, well, we are more in the blue. We are in the marine universe. So we stay in the same universe. Nina and Blandine talked about, I quote, a play of lights, a combination of words they used to describe this dynamic lighting. Maxandre saw the blue, icy atmosphere and attributed a bodily sensation to it. He said, "The color a little will say icy, while the environment, the staging, blue will say, the blue that you would put on a gown, a little icy, like refreshing. Compared to here, level 1, it would be more in the tones of desert, well, more in the atmosphere because it's desert animals." So most visitors were therefore sensitive to the colors of the Grande Galerie. The perception of colors intervenes on the construction of the sense in several degrees. First, colors contribute to the visual aesthetics appreciation of the gallery and the exhibits. Second, colors intervene in the recontextualizations of stuffed specimens, recreating the hues of natural environments. Third, colors segment the visit, giving rhythm to the reading of the exhibition layout. Fourth, colors stimulate a recall of mnemonic images that serve as a reference to the experience of visit. Finally, colors can induce bodily sensations such as hot and cold. These results invite us to carefully consider the possible uses of colored light within the exhibition. These uses can reinforce the narrative framework of the exhibition and favor the cognitive interpretation of the visitors and their bodily sensations. They stimulate contemplative states that encourage attention, prolonging and giving rhythm to the visit. Third, into the darkness between fascination and constraint. The Grande Galerie de l'Évolution is mainly in darkness. It is described as dim, dark, sometimes very dark by visitors. For instance, when Leon entered the exhibition space, his attention was directly drawn to the largest animals, which are placed in the center and benefit from focused lighting. Marie was also sensitive to the overall dark atmosphere and focused lighting. She said, "The canopy is quite soothing because it allows for light while keeping it dark enough to be comfortable and not be solicited by an exciting excess of light, while still allowing for visibility, which is very good. The lighting in the museum is very good." For Nina, her impression of dim lights did not surprise her. She found it common to other museums. But the darkening bothered visitors when the light level was too lower for preventive conservation purposes, especially in the insect display cases. Blandine recalled the darkness in the galleries around the hall that made it difficult to see and read. Similarly, Christelle did not enjoy the sight of certain elements that interested her. She was attracted by the reptiles, but she did not see them well enough and moved on. For Christelle, the dark part, I quote, is not the most pleasant, and we miss a lot of information. The light, she explained, played an important role. Christelle expressed her satisfaction at the end of her visit, but she regretted a lack of visibility in certain places. For François, there were also parts that lacked lighting. He suggested adding spotlights in the cave windows to facilitate vision and reading. In the hall, he gave up seeing the butterflies up close for these reasons. He was aware that a stronger light could harm the conservation of the insects. Nevertheless, the half-light provided an atmosphere that he appreciated. According to Lionel, the butterfly windows were dark. He passed quickly. Later in the visit, he found himself facing the Asian elephant exhibit in the dark corner. This helped to stimulate his imagination. I quote, "It's our whole imagination that comes into play. It's a place that makes you dream because it takes you to Kipling, to stories, to everything you could read as a child that made you travel. I can't see very well, but it doesn't bother me more than that. On the contrary, for the staging, I think it's really studied." Sarah was also sensitive to lighted environments that stood out from the darkness. At one point, she decided to leave a dark area to go towards the polar bears exhibited into a better lit area. The question of legibility also rose for Maxander when he visited the gallery of extincted species. The case of François Clair was different. He was attracted by the darkness spaces, so he decided to go to the back of the gallery for this very reason. The darkness of the Grande Galerie thus provoked two opposite reactions in the visitors: fascination and constraint. Visitors appreciated the darkening, which contributes to the atmosphere, but they were frustrated when it hid subjects in showcases and the reading of the labels. This concerned the audience regardless of age, who quickly left these areas and concentrated on visually more ergonomic spaces. In this perspective, the museum's darkness is both an element of appreciation and repulsion. On the one hand, its general presence helps to create a pleasant atmosphere that prolongs the audience's permanence in the space and contributes to effects of relaxation and contemplation of the specimens. The contrasts of light and shadow favor the perception of the specimens. Indeed, it is because of contrast that forms and colors are more noticed. On the other hand, the lack of luminosity speeds up the visit. Visitors prefer to leave these dark areas that prevent the visibility of the specimens to go to brighter corners. In this perspective, darkening to see better is true for perception, provided that the level of illumination is sufficient to see the activity. The results of our study highlight the narrative and media dimensions of lighting. The dynamic lighting devices participate directly in the temporality and the rhythm of the visit. The device focuses or diverts attention, encourages meditative and contemplative states, induces exchanges between visitors, stimulates mnemonic images, constructs the visiting space, and participates in the resolution of the expographic plot. The strategic communicative intention thus influences embodied experience. Visitors focus on the accentuated specimens, and this proximity gives them complementary experiences to the education devices already in place: screen, labels, graphic panels. Thus, the lighting can include or exclude sequences of visit, make explicit or erase elements, as well as favor or prevent the encounter with the content and discourse of the exhibition. Lighting also favors a degree of interaction between visitors and among visitors and the exhibition space. So the dynamic lighting as an element of the spectacular scenography contributes to stimulate emotional, aesthetic, physical, imaginative, and mnemonic sequences. The sense-making are thus part of an embodied experience stimulated by lighting. Such sequences participate in the understanding of the living things, which was initially sought by the designers and despite conservators and museologists' concerns. Thank you for your attention. I also would like to thank Sylvie Lelomerviel, director of the Deviso Laboratory, Daniel Smith, the co-director of the Deviso Laboratory of the Université des Hauts-de-France, then researchers Virginie Blondeau, Marine Thébault, and Marine Lagasse for their support in the investigations, as well as Eric Joly, Cyril Rouguet, Frédéric Lafont, Yves Giraud from the Muséum National d'Histoire Naturelle in Paris for their support in the realization of this project.